Huh? Pretty awesome. So as you can see from up there, we are the Robot 3 Days team. We come from Orlando, Florida. We got some intros, but to start off, if you guys didn't know what we did, we've got a quick little video that we just did. This is unreleased video of pretty much the whole summary of what we did. So that was edited by Jason in the back. He's recording more stuff. That's my brother. Older brother, even though he's smaller than me. So I'm Andrew Rudolph.
I'm Dan Richardson.
Robbie's texting. Mike's not here. He was there with us through the 3 days. He was shooting video the whole time. And the most important team member is, of course, Cute Baby, representing is Kristen, Dan's wife.
She could not make it, and we were very sad. Oh, all right. Well, that's a presentation.
I guess we'll go home. See you guys. So that's the team. We had a few people come and go through the 3 days who helped us build and get stuff taken care of and do wiring and things like that. But for the most part, probably 60% of the time, it was the three of us. Oh, okay. I'm an industrial designer. I work for a company called Stage Equipment and Lighting. That's what we do.
So, and just try to give you guys a little bit of background about who we are. I'm a 14-year vet of FRC. I work for Walt Disney World as a mechanical engineer, building robots as a job.
I'm also a mechanical engineer, and I think I started first in 2002 or 2003. Nathan remembers, I don't. But I now work on experimental aircraft, graduated from UCF with Dan. So
He builds flying
I do
cars.
build flying cars, thank you, Dan.
Very literally, flying cars. The future is with this man.
It's not a joke, he really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started first in '99. So. You can tell we're very serious people. So we're going to talk about what our plan was, why we did Robot in 3 days, and then we're going to go through some other things about the tools we used, some experiences we had, some compromises, things like that, so you guys can understand what we went through, and then maybe you can learn something from that that you can apply to your team. And then, of course, we'll talk to you guys, question and answer. So the first thing was when we asked ourselves, how can we mentor many teams? So I've been a mentor on a number of teams, and with Cute Baby being born, Dan and I have been mentoring, all three of us have been mentoring together. and it became really difficult to mentor a team.
Yeah. It takes all of us to take care of Cute Baby. She's a high drama baby.
So
Maintenance.
we were just thinking to ourselves, what can we do to help as many people as possible? You know, we could spend 6 weeks and work closely with 30 kids, or could we compress a build season into 3 days and help thousands of people? Our YouTube channel's got 160,000 something hits already, or something.
Yeah, so we over the last few years, we've been mentoring. We mentored all through college in our first few years of our career. And as you kind of do that transition, it takes a lot of time. As you guys know, you dedicate hundreds, if not thousands of hours every year to this program. And as a young professional, as a new father, as we're trying to expand our careers, that got really hard for us to commit that kind of time to teams. So we tried to come up, we brainstormed early last year on a way, or a theory of a way where we could make similar impacts in less time, or at least fewer days. May end up being the same amount of time because we spend so much time during those days. But we wanted to make a bigger impact with less time. And it's not to say that we didn't make bigger impacts on individuals' lives, but we want to make a broader impact, I should say, on people. And so this is where this idea was born.
So as Dan kind of alluded to, we started prepping in October, and this is a video of us prepping. I don't know if you guys had saw. We last year around this time we made a thing that was called the To-Go Box. That was basically a drivetrain. And so in October we stripped that entire thing down, get all the parts off of it. It was a robot in 3 days, but it started actually at the championship last year, was when we kind of were all sitting around the table trying to figure out what we could do. So it's something that your team can learn is build season doesn't start on the first weekend in January. The only way we were able to build a robot in 3 days is we got everything organized. Robbie completely cleaned the shed, top to bottom, get everything organized, made sure we had parts ready to, like, on the shelf, off the shelf, all that kind of stuff, to make sure we're ready for the build season. So when we hit the ground running, we hit the ground running. We don't spend time looking for stuff, so on and so forth.
Yeah, preparation, guys, is probably the biggest piece to a first season. There's nothing that beats preparation. And it may take years, it may take decades of preparation to get to yourself to the same level, or the level you want to be at, I should say. But it all starts before January. It starts before that weekend. Even a robot in 3 days, we had to be organized. We had to know what we had. We had to have those tools and skill sets. Even when it came down to Robbie being able to purchase new equipment from Craigslist, of all places, for the shed, so we knew that we could prototype quickly. Making sure that we had adequate robot parts already on the shelves. With having sponsors in this case, it was very helpful to try to get ourselves organized. We were in a situation where we knew we couldn't purchase any parts before our robot had to be built. I mean, think about that. We started on Saturday. We had to have a reveal on Tuesday. If they ship out on a Monday, when do you get your parts? Yeah, so it doesn't add up. You have to have everything you have on the shelf. In this case, you can kind of see that we had a hodgepodge of pieces together, and you guys can take a look at the robot after this. But preparation is key. So think about that for as you're going into next year. When you start, it pretty much starts next week. Start thinking about what you need to do.
Walk around the pits, look at what other people are using, what they're doing, check out the manufacturers' booths who are here, see what's out there, so you know what you need to do for next year. So strategy, I do a lot of workshops down in Central Florida for teams, and one of the things I always preach is get your strategy in place before you even plan on what you're going to build. Because we had such a compressed schedule, our strategy was done in an hour and a half or 2 hours. But that goes to our experience. I've been in it for 15 years and 10 years, 13 years. So we have a lot of experience, so we can kind of read the game. But we actually missed a lot of stuff early on. We had friends who were on teams who were texting us rules. For instance, with hanging, we didn't even realize you had to hang in sequence, and we were already planning a hanger in the beginning. And then someone texted us, "Oh, you really need to look at those hanging rules closer," because we read the rules in 15 minutes, looked for any big changes, and moved on. So like we do the chassis size changed and things like that. So our strategy, when we knew going in, we're going to do the one big strategy that you have to do in the game, and then we'll do one smaller strategy. So that was just for us what we were doing.
With strategy, I want to touch on that just a second. You know, there's a lot of different reasons why people build first robots. You know, inspiration. They want to build them because they're cool, they're fun to build, they're fun to program. It's kind of a unique thing to say that you can build a robot. A lot of people build the robots because there's a competition that we're involved with too, and they want to be the most competitive team that they can be, and bring home some hardware for their hometown, for their teams, for their schools. And strategy is a big part of that. There's a great talk Karthik gives. I think it was overloaded last night, so it's usually on YouTube. You guys should probably check that out. But strategy and the way you develop your strategy also needs to be specifically tailored to your team. So your skill sets, your available resources need to develop how that strategy. So in our case, we have 3 days. We have to prototype with really quick resources. We have to figure out the things that we know that we can accomplish. We have to keep it simple, and we have to be able to execute those pieces reliably. And we have to do that in 3 days. So the whole strategy talk here, there's a lot of years of experience behind the table, but at the same time, even without that experience, you can boil down those simple tasks that you know that you're going to be able to do repeatedly and be able to execute. How many people here thought that if you had a 30-point climber and a 20-point dumper, that at the very beginning of the season you would win every match? I mean, pretty significant. And I think that most of us felt that if you scored 50 points every match, you would rank in the top 8 no matter what. And that is proving to be true at some levels of competition. But really, these, you know, where did the shooters come from? We're scoring all of the discs available to us in this competition. The level of competition this year is intense, and so you've got to play to those strengths. And I think a lot of teams did that this year. It's really pretty cool to see. Oh yeah. So we want to talk about the house rules real quick, and we'll move on past this. There's a video up there where we basically talk about our house, our rules. We're trying to explain some stuff to a cute baby that doesn't really make sense. But the principle here is, with our build, we got to bend the rules. We didn't compete anywhere, so we like to highlight that. We don't use a C-Rio just because we didn't even have one at the time, and a couple other things. So the robot is a little bit different than FRC rules. But in prototyping, you need to know that that's okay. If you have a plan to prototype your mechanisms, you need to know that you're within the bounds of what's physically possible within the kit, but you don't need to build exactly a first legal robot from day one. You can prototype with things like plywood and, well, that's legal, other motors. And yeah, there you go. So I just we like to put that as a disclaimer.
So this was kind of part of the strategy also with us. We had to build a robot in 3 days. I mean, it's only 72 hours. So there was a lot of times where we had to put our nose to the grindstone and just really, really keep working, keep calm and roboting on. And Dan kind of touched on this before. A big point that robot in 3 days you can take from it is to design within your resources. We didn't try to build a 33-level hangar with a shooter and all that kind of stuff in 3 days. We knew we couldn't do that. We knew that in this amount of time, we could do X, and these are the tools we have to do that, and things like that. So we didn't spend a lot of time CADing because we didn't have any computer-controlled equipment. Everything was handmade. So we knew our resources, and that's a big thing Dan was kind of talking about before.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a CNC part on there, I guess, unless maybe you count the gearboxes that are off the shelf. So you don't have to have every available technology. We had basically everything on there being off-the-shelf parts. Well, we're going to talk about the tools, but or stomp shear, sheet metal, and a press brake. So
this is the tools that we have. So everything in there is manual. The only digital thing in the entire place is the digital readouts on the mill. Our digital readout in the lathe is a $20 Harbor Freight Centec caliper with the rubber band on it, which Robbie's fighting this year to have us get.
We do have a
For
Robbie.
DRO.
We have RNC. It's Robbie controlled.
Robbie numerically controlled.
We have to find something better.
So
than
when you
that.
guys, want to build good robots, you don't have to have amazing machines. You don't even have to have a machine shop to help you. Most of the tools that are really critical that we found have been critical. You can buy used on Craigslist, and a lot of people, anywhere, used anywhere. It really is true. And the old American tools are really affordable compared to the cheap Chinese stuff that really doesn't last. So.
That's not an official Robot 3D statement.
Okay, the import stuff, sorry. But what we found to be just the best
Can we
tools.
cut that out of the video?
Sorry. We're a shear and a brake. I mean, we built most of the robot with a shear and a brake. We have a mill, we have a lathe that we use some, but really not very much.
So if you guys don't know what a shear is, this is a video of Dan and Robbie operating the shear. There we go.
That's actually how that machine operates. We're not kidding. It's called a stomp shear. You actually have to stomp on it.
So there's a funny story about a stomp shear in our 200 square foot build space. We only had 2 batteries for the robot, and 200 feet there's no space to store things, and somehow a battery got stuck under the stomp shear. And you can see you don't exactly feather it. So one of our batteries got stomped right on the terminal. So we have a battery where the negative terminal is just shoved down inside the battery. But it already had good connections on it.
Yeah, we used it for our
We used
video.
it. Another not official.
Yeah, you don't do that.
Use new batteries.
This is an example of what not to do when building a robot. This whole presentation is just fraught with it.
No.
No?
It was funny because we were really worried, and we were just we were like, oh man, all of our batteries are dead. Our other battery, all of them. Our other battery's dead. We need to keep testing stuff. Well, let's just see what happens if we put a load on it, and it was fine. And we charged it up, and it's fine.
It just has a hidden terminal now.
Well, we said we prototype, right? We were testing things constantly, so.
Yeah, prototype constantly. And speaking of prototyping, this is a big design mantra that I preach and lots of people like. You don't have to prototype everything, just what you want to work. So don't assume because the computer says something's going to work, it's going to work. You're probably going to fail if you just assume the computer says it's going to work. A lot of teams struggle with that.
And there's a lot of variables that go into design. I mean, we want simplified physics when we calculate these things, but that's not always the case, is it? There's things that we couldn't predict or we didn't have enough time to apply proper analytics for the engineers out there to evaluate the designs. I mean, it's 6 weeks. It's even in a full design cycle that's not 3 days for first. You don't have enough time to simulate every last piece. And even then, it just comes down to testing. So you have to be able to prototype, and you have to constantly iterate on those designs. Iteration will help perfect your robots. A lot of the great teams in this competition, the top 10 teams throughout the year, perennially, constantly working on their robot. Every regional, something's changing. It doesn't stop on ship day. It stops at it doesn't stop till after championship. You're always working on that robot.
So now we're going to talk about some compromises that we had to make in building a robot in 3 days that you guys wouldn't have had to make if you were working in 6 weeks with more time. So the first one's the round shooter. You guys, I mean, you've seen out there now, there is a lot of really, really effective round shooters, horseshoe shooters, whatever you want to call it. We prototyped it pretty quick. It worked okay.
So I want to jump in for a second. We wanted to start off this slide with a quote about compromise. It turns out there's a whole bunch of really great quotes about not compromising, but there's not a whole lot about compromising, about actual good compromise. And so we could call this trade-offs. We could call it compromise. You could call it whatever you want to call it. It's not decision-making process.
Stevie Banner.
But yeah, the round shooter.
Panicking.
I I guess I'll let Andrew get back to it. But the round shooter is something you guys saw prototype as a first option. It was the one that was commonly available on YouTube. You know, somebody's got a big bicycle wheel attached to a motor and they're shooting for a senior design project or something like that. So it was the one we wanted to see, but we couldn't come up with a way to package it because of the constraints this year on the 30 by 30 or whatever it is, 114 inch per frame. I forget the rules, but read the manual.
We built the robot like 12 weeks ago. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just couldn't package it, is really what it came down to with the frame dimensions of that year, or at least it wasn't obvious to us.
And we didn't come up with the idea for the bucket. I don't know, the Spectrum team, that was brilliant. So
I hope we're good.
that came like week 2, which was after we were done.
Yeah,
so.
the bucket is pretty awesome. You've seen a lot of them. And then the linear shooter, which you all have seen and we use and a lot of people use. And that came out of looking at a Nerf disc shooting gun. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. Nerf makes a little gun that shoots little discs, and it's got a little lever arm that shoves it into a tube, and there's ribs along the wall, and it spins it out. And we were like, all right, well, we know that the round shooter was working, but we couldn't really package it. Let's try to make that linear shooter. I think it was Robbie's idea to do the 2 wheels at different RPMs. And having the tools, we were able to test it out, and we knew that we thought that the round shooter had more distance probably, but not a significant amount for what we were looking at, because our strategy was to just shoot from the pyramid, so we didn't have to shoot at 54 feet. So I think we just said, okay, it works good enough, and we know we can package it, so let's go with this linear shooter.
You know, you got to think about it, guys. It's a system here. You're not building one component. You're building a system of pieces that need to play together for you to play this game. It's a whole robotic system. So just because the circular shooters, the round shooters, whatever we're calling them now, may have had some better performance, if you couldn't come up with a way, and I know a lot of teams did, so I'm not saying that there wasn't a way, and a lot of those teams have executed brilliantly, but if you couldn't come up with a way in your design cycle to package that, then it's not going to work on a robot. So that's where compromise comes in. It may have been the best idea individually, but collectively is it the best idea? Probably not in our case, because we didn't have a solution to get it on there. So that's why you have to compromise. You had a solution that was good enough on an individual component to make a better overall robot and more successful to the challenge.
So you can see here the only CAD we did the entire build. Dan just blocked out. Dan and Robbie sat down, tape measures, figuring out what sizes did we need for things and how are we going to fit this all into a chassis.
Yeah.
And that CAD was done Saturday night.
Yeah. Yes, CAD. I fall into this a lot too, even in work life. Sometimes you see it in SolidWorks and you're like, this is going to work because it looks awesome, and I've got fillets everywhere and we're good to go. But the reality is, a lot of times, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, we engineered things without computers. And it came down to just simple sketches and sometimes even really detailed sketches. I'm not saying CAD is not important. Planning is extremely important, and you guys need to develop that skill set if you want to be in any sort of engineering. But it's not the end-all, be-all of a design. You can design with simplified sketches and simplified ideas, and it's also not going to deem the success of your robot. So just because you have a CAD doesn't mean you're going to have a successful robot. Just because you don't have a CAD doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. So this is where we sort of prove that. I actually wanted to CAD a lot more of it, and I think Robbie and Andrew talked me down, which is hard for me because I need to have a full plan in place. But
we had a vision. We sketched it out. We figured it out. So more compromises. The lifter was the only point, I think, in the entire 3-day build that there was a lot of stress in the build space. It was the end of the day on Monday.
yeah,
It was about halfway through the day on Monday.
We're losing Robbie back to work on Tuesday.
Robbie had to go build flying cars on Tuesday. So Monday afternoon, we really didn't have a plan for a lifter that was going to work. Like I said, we had some plans ahead of time, and then we realized we had the rules wrong, so we had to refigure it out. So we got pretty stressed out, and this is where the engineering skills really came in.
It's a cosine theta there.
So Dan, and actually it was actually kind of funny. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Dan, but Dan didn't know the math off his head anymore, right?
What?
We
Are you calling me out? What is this?
I'm pretty sure that there was a college kid there who knew it better than you.
Yeah, probably.
No, actually, Dan and one of the college kids who came by did math. Mark Leon would be happy.
Yeah, that's why we do the math, right? No, I mean, the compromise was, Robbie and I were disagreeing basically on the mechanical advantage of the system. And it's probably the only time we really disagreed throughout the entire time. And Robbie was saying, well, we don't have another solution. And that was the truth. We didn't have another solution. And I agreed with that because we didn't have another way we could package at the time with the components we had. Everybody's done it with these kind of linear actuator systems. Those are excellent. We didn't have that, so we couldn't use that. We had to come up with what we had. And we knew we had gearboxes that we could build a winch with. But the problem was we kind of had to do this lever arm, and we had to be geared appropriately so that we would actually make it up in a reasonable amount of time and actually be able to lift the robot. So what we did was, in trying to better the team, if you will, is we took the design that we were working on and applied the math to get it right. So that's the key. We had to take the solution we were going. It's not the ideal or perfect solution for a hangar this year. We've seen many elegant solutions, but what we had to do was find a way to make that work. And what we did was we found that if we just took the larger PG and the Andy Mark PG 171 gearbox and geared it 1 to 2, we could get the ratio we needed.
It's a 188, Dan.
Oh, 180.
I know because I just looked at it.
And we just geared it up with a sprocket. We were done, and we could lift. And it was that simple. And it took us, 15 minutes or so to get all of that out, or half an hour. I forget. Maybe Andrew thinks it took 5 hours or whatever. We were up in the corner for a while, but that was the difference. If we hadn't have put that additional gear stage, we were on the border of not being successful with our hangar. So there are places where you have to sit down and do this analytics, and you have to stop and you have to say, let's do it. It may not be ideal, but we have to pick the plan we have, which was Robbie's plan, and we had to make it work, so we applied the math to make it work.
So here's a video of a cat riding on a Roomba. Just because you need a mental break, I think. That's not even Ronnie, Dan's cat. I just wanted to throw them off. They didn't know I had that in there. Good times. Okay, so
So as you can tell from the screen, robots are awesome.
all right, so the next is another unaired piece of footage edited again by Jason. This is a blooper reel, a little behind the scenes look at what it was like in the in the shed. Oops, it's okay.
Hey Andrew, could you tell me what you're doing?
Wait, you missed the first part.
Hey
Start
Andrew.
over. You didn't see anything.
Who knew shaft collars are meant to be tightened?
Hey Andrew, could you tell me what you're doing? Right.
I don't know what's going on.
So I'm saying is you're up here.
Do that again.
We don't happen to have another half-inch
What?
hex collar. I'm making something.
Wheels not gonna hold together much longer. Come on! 3, 2, 1. Come on, Dulux!
Video of a high five.
Barry Montag.
Alright.
In a world where Dan pulls his wire the wrong way, 2 children will fight to survive a robot in 3 days.
That thing.
Who's saying these are not balanced for highway speeds? Hello. Okay, what I'm working on now is our ball, or excuse me.
Start over, frisbee.
What is that?
Our journey begins in a world where time is king.
Did you have doubts?
Style video. Freestyle video.
Okay.
This here be a brackets. The stuff goes on it with the hole.
Little do we know that.
Ready for fun?
I said in that one, I'm like, they said, "You want to have fun?" Then it hits me. Yeah, that was fun.
Robot in 3 days.
All right, so this is
There's the web
this
stream
is a tour of the entire space.
with our
So,
Stream
if you
Monkey
guys watch the
servers.
stream, that's your home over there. You got to live.
Coming over
You
here.
have one speaker that works in there, and we played a lot of classic rock and roll.
Barry. Yo. JR. Hey.
So this was Saturday night when we had a bunch of
Andrew,
college
what up?
kids there helping us out.
Robot. Barry.
That's Robbie there.
It's Robbie.
So you can see we had a lady. There's the Mel.
There's Mike.
That's
He had
Mike.
way too many Red Bulls.
There's
Here's the editing bay.
So that's where I sat for 3 days editing videos for you guys to watch.
There's the Stream Monkey headquarters right there. You can see me a few minutes ago walking by. See the kind of lag from reality.
No,
Coordinate
it
his
just
talk
went
for
through
this
time.
video.
And Dan.
So Dan lived for whenever he was catting or checking on the website,
This is the CAD zone back here for Dan.
which most of the time, as you kind of can see,
He's actually
he's got
watching
the,
us.
the web stream up. He just sat there and watched us work and laughed at us. No. So
I
we
was
didn't
chatting.
yeah, we were running the chat. Did you guys watch the stream? Any of you? The light's going down. Ooh, I don't know. I didn't do it. I don't think.
I think we got 12 more minutes, so.
Maybe someone's leaning on a switch. Anyways.
Okay, well, it's a discotheque now. Oh, wow. Someone's really getting on it.
That's pretty awesome. I can't even do that.
Can anybody freestyle?
I almost put a video in of a goat beatboxing.
That would have been very relevant. All right.
Oh, ketchup bro. I gotta move on. Ketchup bro. So that's what we've got for you guys. We want to hear from you, though, of course, if you have any questions for us. In closing, I mean, we had a lot of fun. We had you guys on the chat room talking to us. It was funny because there'd be times when we were pretty down or tired or stressed, and we'd go over to the chat room and like read on the chat, and we would get kind of excited again. So it actually really helped a lot, and all the good feedback you guys have given us since then.
Yeah. You know, first, I just want to say this, and we'll go into our Q&A, unless Robbie's got a comment. But first, for inspiration, recognition, science, and technology, right? Okay, everybody knows that. It's it's the only competition that I know of in the world that really truly pairs engineers and high schoolers and students together and inspires in a way where they're working together side by side, hand in hand, right? Both students and engineers turning wrenches together, both working through the design process. inspiration is the piece that I like to focus on a lot. And in the competition atmosphere, that's what drew me in, the competitiveness. But also, it's a lot of fun to build these machines. After a while, you really get into the designs and being able to execute on plans. And for this robot in 3 days, I think it was just as inspirational to us. Well, I have no idea if it was inspirational to you guys, but it was inspirational to us. We enjoyed that process so much that we want to keep trying to do more with these programs and more with this platform and see how far we can take it. Maybe next year's robot in a couple hours or something like that. Yeah.
25 seconds of robot action.
Anyways, we left some time purposely to take any questions and answers. If you got answers, we'll give you questions.
Yeah. The average velocity of an unladen swallow.
All right, we'll walk her around.
Somebody got it.
All right, I'll walk.
He's got long legs.
I was just curious. I thought originally you had the high traction wheels, and now I noticed you've got some type of mechanical wheels. I was just curious.
Yeah, we wanted to put mechanicals on it originally, and then that whole building on a weekend caught up with us. We didn't have the right hubs to actually fit those wheels, so we ended up going with the traction wheels. The beauty of the chassis that we built, though, is that you can swap it back and forth. It's literally one bolt, one shaft collar, and you can swap it. So
kind of a take off the West Coast drive. But this robot's not exactly what you see in the videos. It went to a couple local teams, and throughout the season, as part shortages came about, whatever, people ended up scrapping a lot of the robot for their actual competition robots. So it's kind of in a weakened state, but it was able to get back to the community.
Yeah, we had a team was driving it a bunch with the other wheels, and a key fell out, so we had to take the key out of the shooter and the hubs, but it's mostly here.
Okay.
Other questions? The guy in the purple, or you're on that side?
All right, over here.
We'll get you next.
Is it on? I would like to hear briefly about your process where you said you picked one big thing and then one small thing. How did you arrive at that, and was it consensual?
Yeah, so the one big thing and one small thing was actually planned ahead of time because we knew we had to do a 3-day build. So we knew we couldn't do everything because we didn't know what the first game was, and it could have been a game that you had to do 15 things. So this year's game, it was a lot easier, I think, for us to do those things because we wanted to build a shooter because we kind of had an idea of how to do a shooter from the shooters that were done in the past years. And the small thing became a hanger. We talked a little while for the small thing being a floor pickup, but I think pretty quickly, looking at Frisbees, realized a floor pickup isn't a little thing. So we went with the hanging. So it was consensual. We worked together a lot, really well. We didn't really apply any engineering decision-making models or anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of it, some of it was experience, some of it was, I almost don't even want to say this, but there was a little bit of an element to show. We did want to make sure that we prototyped shooters because we felt like it was really important to the game this year. So we wanted to make sure that we had something to show to whoever was going to watch it. We had no idea at the time, but we wanted to make shooters. And we also thought that people would want to see a way to hang, but we couldn't figure out a way to do it sequentially fast enough. So.
And we probably at one point figured out we didn't have space for a pyramid anyway. So.
Yeah. But the other thing is, we had a lot of help. I noticed George is here from 180, last year's world champions, one of their strategy guys. We had strategy guys from teams around Florida all texting us, coming up with their philosophy for the games, like quickly doing the math and saying, this is how we think you should prototype a robot. This is what we think will, the mantra of what is the top 24. What is that? There's a website now like 24 or something where the East Coast, West Coast guys talk about the concept of what gets you to play on Saturday afternoon. What robot do you have to build to consistently compete at that level? And we wanted to build a robot that could be at that level. So we chose scoring tactics and strategies that we felt we could make it into the elimination tournament every time. It wasn't always a reach. It was pretty simplified, but it was successful. There's a lot of cycle robots that are very good this year. So I think we got 5?
Yep.
All right. Questions? Ah, yeah.
So you guys said you weren't using a stereo. How are you guys controlling the robot?
We've got the cross-the-road electronics Toucan robot control system. It's really, really great for us because we're not programmers. If you heard in the intro, we're all mechanical people. The cross-the-road system is got this really sweet graphic interface that basically you plug your PWMs into the little box. You say front left drive motor is PWM1, front right drive motor is PWM2, so on and so forth. So that saved us time not having a software guy being able to use that cross-the-road box, and it's a lot smaller of a footprint. You can come check it out. It's pretty small.
And I don't know that we'll have enough time for everybody to kind of stop by and see the robot. There's a lot of people, so but it will be in Andy Mark's booth all day or all weekend throughout the competitions. You could check it out and see what we did.
It's a little messy now, but it looked better before, I promise.
Any other questions? Oh, all right. Good. Time for maybe 2 more.
Did you guys have any kind of like a formal process for how you came to your decisions? Did you have like a list of tasks or anything? What kind of processes or documents did you guys use during the 3 days?
It was pretty rapid fire. We all work together pretty frequently, so we do already know kind of what our roles are within the group. So that part wasn't hard. The breaking up of tasks was kind of delegated by, we had a delegator who triaged the tasks, and that was pretty much done by Robbie. One of the biggest things that ended up happening was we lost Andrew for most of the first 2 days to editing videos. It takes a long time to edit content, so we were down a man instantly. As far as the design process, I don't think we can point to one, but we definitely did follow a divergent convergent phase where we kind of would brainstorm concepts, but we had to converge very quickly on prototype solutions and identify what worked. So there was okay, stop, let's figure out what we're going to do, sketch out a bunch of ideas, maybe spend a half an hour talking about it at most, and then let's go break apart and take a task each. And we all know how to generally machine and everything, so we were able to do that pretty quickly.
So you talked a lot about how preparation is really key. What would you do to get your parts all ready for you to use? Like, how did you know which parts you needed or would generally need to use to build the robot in 3 days?
Well, that is kind of a shotgun approach. We had a lot of things available, mainly because we contacted sponsors and they were really into the idea, so they sent us generally everything of what we had. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. But if you are a first team, one, just inventory what you have. I mean, if you've been around for 10 years, you've got so many things in your kit of parts for the previous years, and if they're unmodified, you can use them on your new robots. So you can, well, read the rules. Before I said, Dan said I could use this on a robot inspector. No, so you have to kind of identify core pieces. So you're going to need gearboxes, you're going to need wheels, you're going to need frame rails or chassis or all those sort of components. So make sure you have that stuff available. Chain, things that you're going to use every year. There's not a bad thing to order more than you need the first year, especially if you plan on being a sustainable team.
Something that on the actual teams I've always been on, when we're ordering parts, we always order a little extra. So we have spares, and then we inventory it and keep it organized so we have it the years after that. So if we're ordering chain, okay, we think we might need 20 feet of chain. Well, let's just go ahead and order 40 feet of chain. We'll have spares, and we'll use it next year. And then raw materials was another thing that we had around because we knew we were doing the machining. So we acquired sheets of Lexan, sheets of aluminum, things like that we knew we were going to use.
All right, this will be our last one.
I just want to say thank you guys for what you're doing. up there, because even on us, you know, we'd say we're a veteran team, but we took a lot of inspiration from what you guys were doing. So thank you for the work that you put in. I know it was a lot of work. And can we expect to see this next year? Please.
George would do that to us.
Can we expect to see this next year?
You guys want it?
Do we want it, guys? Do we want to hear this next year?
All right, well, we have to wrap up, so that concludes our presentation. We'll be walking throughout the pits for spectators this weekend, just enjoying the show, so go out there, compete hard, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys on the field.
Thank you.